Welcome back, y'all, and happy Monday. Hope that you had a great weekend. Hope that you have a great start to your week. Today, we're going to be recapping off of some things that we talked about before. The first one is going to be with blue chip caliber running backs in the 2026 class. It does sound like Tennessee's off to a good start, so I'm going to show you two players. One of them has already set up an OV with Tennessee. The other one is in the works and in the process of getting that done. And we'll also talk a little bit more about the transfer portal, NIL, and things like that that's coming up for this spring window. I have a little bit more insight on it at this point. Please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, y'all, we're going to start off with four-star running back Jonaz Walton, listed at 5'9", 190 pounds. He just dropped his top 10, and the list was Alabama, Auburn, Florida, Florida State, Georgia, Miami, Notre Dame, Oregon, Stanford, and Tennessee. But he also specified his top four, and that was Alabama, Florida, Notre Dame, and our Vols. So obviously we're off to a good start with these blue chip caliber running backs. And he's talked about being in the process of setting up some unofficial and official visits. I would expect that Tennessee would probably get an unofficial coming up in spring, and we'll probably end up getting an OV from him at some point over the summer. Now, there's several things that I love about Jonaz's game. The first thing would be him already being at about 190, 200 pounds. Looks like he still has some more room to fill out. His playing weight in college could be at 220 pounds. And because Tennessee spreads the field out, we see those lighter boxes. I love the idea of having some of these bigger body running backs that run as hard as Jonaz does. We also see that he has really good balance, good vision, his jump cuts, things like that. I mean, he is explosive. I wouldn't say that he has the best straight line speed, probably 4.5, 4.6, but that's plenty of speed for running backs. It's just more about what can you do in some of that short area stuff, and I think that he has all those tools. He can also catch the football coming out of the backfield. I feel like Tennessee is going to want to utilize the running backs coming out of the backfield more this season, and we've seen him blocking on his highlights. You don't see that typically with these high school running backs. So it feels like it's something that he does take pride in. I've talked about it a lot on this channel. I want to make sure that we have some running backs that can help protect all these blue chip quarterbacks that Tennessee is going to have for years to come up under Coach Heupel. So Jonaz is going to be a player that I'm going to be watching very closely to see how this process plays out for him. But it's good to know that Tennessee is in his top four at this point. Next, we have future five-star running back Savian Hiter, listed at 6 feet tall, 190 pounds. And I'm saying future five-star because with On3, if they're within that top 32, which Savian is, then they're going to be a five-star. It just takes some time for some reason to put it out on these websites. I have no idea why. It doesn't really make sense to me. But we talked about him last week, saying that he'd probably have an OV set up with Tennessee very, very soon. And he just dropped it. He's going to be visiting our Tennessee Volunteers on June the 20th. Before he visits us, though, he will be visiting Ohio State May the 30th. Georgia's going to be on June the 6th, and then Michigan's on June the 13th. So a lot of folks think that Michigan and Georgia are going to be the toughest competition for Tennessee, but Savian also came out and said that he's planning on visiting a couple of schools in spring. He specified Tennessee on April the 5th, which that's great news because that date's already been set, but he also said that he wants to go visit those Buckeyes. So I wouldn't necessarily say that, there is a set top 2 or 3, but I do feel like Tennessee is in that mix somewhere, if that makes sense. So I would say it's Tennessee versus everybody else. I feel like we are still the team to beat at this point. And just watching him on film, pretty much the same things that we said about Jonaz. I love his skill set where he has really good vision, really good burst, great balance, runs hard, all those types of things. He can also catch the football coming out of the backfield. But with him, where I said, hey, Jonaz is probably like a guy that's going to, run 4.5, 4.6 at 220 pounds. With Savian, I think that we're talking about a guy that could be 225, 230, running 4.4, 4.5. So just a little bit faster, probably going to be a little bit bigger. But outside of that, very, very similar players. And I would love it if Tennessee could find a way to get both of these guys in. I'm hoping that that's what the plan is, because that will be beautiful for us moving forward with those light boxes, with the great wide receivers that we're going to have on the outside, with a really good offensive line, and with some sort of a blue chip caliber quarterback, because we got a few of them already. So I love how things are trending for Tennessee, just as far as how the offense could look 2 to 3 years down the line. All right, y'all, let's talk about this spring transfer portal window. What you're looking at right now is basically the Cliff Notes version of a video that we did previously on this channel, where we broke this stuff down a lot more in depth. And if you want to watch that video, then you can click on the link in the top right-hand corner. But I just want to make sure that for today, everyone is caught up and understands what I'm talking about. So, number one, on April the 7th, we are expecting that the NCAA will be reaching a settlement with the 3 antitrust lawsuits that they're currently facing. That's going to mean that revenue sharing is coming in 2025. It could also potentially mean an NIL cap, and that's going to be based off of market value. So the reason that this can actually take place and get implemented now is because Congress is expected to back up college sports with an antitrust pass. So NIL cap is going to be operated by a third-party company. They're going to call it the NIL Clearinghouse. They're just going to make sure that the in-house NIL, so like Aspire Sports, isn't paying over the market value for any players. And if you're caught doing that, the player has to sit out. the NIL collective is going to get fined, and the school also gets fined, and there's some pretty hefty fines. So we'll see what happens with it. We'll see how long that's actually going to last, because I think that antitrust, or I know that antitrust is a federal law, but with Congress, kind of backing up college sports and the NCAA and things like that, it would be, I would, anticipate more difficult to sue anybody with it. So it might last for a little bit longer than maybe I'm thinking. I don't know how long it's all gonna last, but we know that it's probably, more than likely going to be implemented this spring. But also there could be a transfer portal limit, and I don't know how that's going to look. It's been mentioned very vaguely, but for me, that's the most important thing, or maybe that is the most beneficial thing, I feel like, for the student athletes, because if you're transferring 3-4 times, there's no way that you're really able to get better at anything. You're probably not learning too much. Obviously, different states, they have different courses and classes that you have to take. You're not gonna learn the same types of things. So I just think that it is hurting the players if they're transferring out too much, and I like the idea of there being a limit on it. To me, that's what's hurting college athletics the most. And then at number 4, we have an enforcement group that, again, in the video that we did previously, we broke this thing down a lot more in depth, but that's just the people that are going to be enforcing all the rules and all the new laws and things like that. So last thing on this slide, y'all, is that the spring portal is going to open up on April the 16th. Now, for some reason, previously, I thought that the spring portal opened up in March. So what this means is, if you're looking at these dates, the NCAA settlement comes on the 7th. That's going to be before the 16th, so before the transfer portal opens up. I think that that's going to mean some very positive things for Tennessee, because I was initially thinking that, man, Tennessee's about to have to overpay for anybody that we bring in, just because this was going to be the final portal window where players can get overpaid. But with all those things being said, hopefully everyone is caught up, and everything else that we talk about today will make some sense. So what does market value look like? It could be based off of the current NIL prices, and this is how things are looking. And this is going to be, based off of the previous transfer portal window. This is how much players were getting paid at different spots. The only thing that's not going to be up here, y'all, is tight end, cornerback, and safety. But we'll kind of talk about how that could potentially look here in just a second. So number 1, quarterbacks getting paid anywhere from $750,000 to $3.5 million. Linebackers $100,000 to $800,000. Wide receivers $500,000 to $2.5 million. Pass rushers $500,000 to $1 million. Tackles $800,000 to $1 million. Guards and centers $400,000 to $1.5 million. And then offensive tackles, talking about $600,000 to $2.5 million. Now, I don't think that this is what the market value is going to look like. I don't think that this is going to be basically, like what the average is. I do believe that those numbers are going to come down significantly, because the people who are putting this stuff in place are the ones that are running these schools, these institutions, and all of that. So they want to save as much money as possible. And the only way to do that would be to get away from what the current market value is. So unfortunately, for a lot of players, this is what I believe the NIL caps will end up looking like moving forward in 2000, or I guess starting off in 2025. So quarterbacks, I think that the cap's going to be set at $1.5 million. Running backs, probably, $500,000. Also, we didn't have running backs mentioned on the previous slide. Wide receivers, I think that the cap's going to be at $1 million. I think the tight ends, somewhere around $500,000. Guards and centers, $750,000. Tackles, probably at about $1 million. I think pass rushers, probably going to go for about $1 million as well. Pretty much, I would say the tackles on defense, and also linebackers, $800,000. Cornerbacks and safeties also at $750,000. So this, to me, maybe looks a little bit more feasible, and it could be less than that. But if you're talking about what Tennessee has to go out there and target, we're talking about defensive tackles, so probably going to be paying somewhere around $800,000, and also wide receiver. Again, the cap is at $1 million. We'll see how the market looks once, everything is changed, because I don't think Tennessee's going out to try to get a really, really good wide receiver. But if we can go out and get one, that probably would have been, costing us over $2 million. Now we can get him at a discount, but we could also potentially end up paying for a guy that, really probably his value probably is only at like $500,000. We might have to pay $1 million for him, just because at this point we're talking about the highest bidders in this spring transfer portal window. And Tennessee absolutely has to go out and get a wide receiver. So this still, I think even if that is the case, we're still probably only, going to be spending less than $2 million. Whereas before, I'm thinking, man, Tennessee's going to be spending $3.5 million just to go out and get 2 players that probably won't be as good as what Tennessee wants. But I think that these rule changes and all that type of stuff, this cap limit for now, could most definitely benefit Tennessee. So with all that being said, y'all, I still have some questions about how the NIL cap's going to work. Obviously, the players are going to get paid based off of their market value. I definitely get that part of it. But will the institutions themselves have a cap limit? I feel like they should, because if they don't, it's going to be the exact same thing that we had before, where the schools with the most money are probably going to have the best rosters, right? I think that we all understand how that part of it works. So if there was going to be a cap limit put on the institutions, it's probably going to be anywhere between 15 to 17 million. We also have revenue sharing coming in, and that's probably going to be about 15 to 17 million for each football program, at least the bigger ones. Some will end up paying more than that, but I would probably try to like steer away from going too far with it because the other sports have to get paid because of Title IX. Now, I don't know, is there going to be some sort of pass with the Title IX as well? We'll see what happens, but I think that there's so many different ways that you can mix and match how the players get paid with the revenue sharing and also with the NIL. So, like, let's just say you have a player that comes in as a freshman at linebacker. You think that they're good enough to play some as a true freshman, but they're probably going to be playing more, obviously, for you in the upcoming seasons. So that's a player that you might say, hey, they're worth about 400,000 with our revenue sharing. Do you want to give them another 400,000 with your NIL, knowing that there is a limit right there? You probably don't. You would give them maybe less with the NIL, but at the end of the day, the money should all spend the exact same way. So all of that type of stuff, those are the reasons that P and I have been saying that Tennessee and everybody else needs GMs, not to tell the coaches who to pick, but so that everything is organized. You need people who can, manage your roster, who can tell you how much money do you have here and there, and how much can you spend on the players that you want coming out of high school and things like that. And especially because there is a cap. I think that's just way too much for college coaches to have to deal with on their own. It's already the most difficult place to coach football at, especially I'm talking about football. It's very difficult. They have a million and one things that they already have to deal with. It just makes the most sense to bring in somebody to manage all those things. But I really feel like, honestly, y'all, putting things on more of an even playing field, which is hopefully what this does, where the players can still get paid, I think that this would end up benefiting Tennessee because we've built such a good name for ourselves. Anytime that you read an article about a player talking, speaking on Tennessee, they always have some great things to say about how personable everybody is. They love the campus atmosphere. They love the people up in Knoxville. They just love the whole vibe. So I think that Tennessee's already built to succeed on this level, kind of like the same way that we did before NIL and all that stuff started way before. I'm talking about in the 90s with Coach Farmer. I think that we've built ourselves a brand that's good enough that we could probably go out and add talent similar to what Coach Farmer did. We're not there quite yet, obviously, because Coach Farmer was going across the country and hand selecting whoever he wanted. We're not there quite yet. But if the offense takes that step forward, especially, with the vertical passing game, if all those things look good, then yeah, we'll be able to bring in a ton of offensive talent because why wouldn't you want to play in this offense that runs the football first, does a great job there? Running backs get to see really light boxes. We want to use our tight ends every way possible. But, oh, by the way, wide receivers, you're putting up crazy numbers. You're, running wide open. If we can get back to that, Tennessee's offense takes that step forward. We already know that the defense is in a great spot. So many players on defense already want to come to Tennessee, especially with the front seven. Can we get our safeties up to par where people want to start coming and playing safety for Tennessee too? I just see us, y'all, with how everything is changing within the next 3 to 4 years, being so dominant. I think that we can get back to some real dynasties now, just because, again, it's more of an even playing field. So some people might hate how things are going to look coming up here very shortly, but I actually love it because I think that with all things equal, Tennessee can compete with anybody on any level, really in any sport. But those are my thoughts. Please share yours with me down in the comment section. And as always, please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.